I'd like to introduce Lynn Armitage, who's the Associate Professor of Urban Development at the Institute of Sustainable Development and Architecture at Bond University. Lynn is a Chartered Surveyor, has a Masters in Environmental Planning and Postgrad Diploma in Urban Studies from Macquarie University, and her PhD is, her alma mater is here at QUT in the field of investment property market analysis. She's had consultancy roles in the public sector, including appointments with the World Bank and the Australian Agency for International Development, AusAid in Thailand, Namibia, Indonesia and Solomon Islands in the areas of land administration, heritage management, institutional development, statutory valuation and geographic information systems. She's a member of the Statutory Surveyors Board of Queensland and is a registered valuer. And she's going to talk to us today about sustainable development and heritage values. Thanks, Lynn.
Oh, good afternoon, everybody. It's just like giving a lecture, this, isn't it? So I'll be just as nervous as I normally am. So what I'm going to do today is talk to the PowerPoints. I haven't prepared anything specific. There's a lot of information, of course, that sits behind this. So if anybody is in any way interested in any aspect of what I'm saying, I can absolutely give you a whole range of information to support what I'm saying, references, material, and all that sort of stuff. So I'll talk through as I go. Essentially where I'm coming from, and probably don't get very far with the discussion, is to look really at the four areas of heritage, of course, of sustainability, of value, and then the context that relates to commercial property. Now, the issues around all these really are that they're each one, to varying extents, can be identified in varying contexts. So depending upon the context that is important for you, then the outcome may well be different, because it depends on where you're coming from and where you're going to. So there's no single answer for this. So, I mean, the thing is that when I finish, you'll be really very little further forward than you are when we start. But, you know, I think we have to enjoy the journey. Essentially, it all derives, to me, from the concepts relating to value. And for those of you who are architects, I would suggest that the relationship between concepts of value and those relating to design are the same thing. They're same issues that can never be answered, and there's always questions relating to them, and there are issues that have no truth and have all truths associated with them. So again, I'm just saying that there's no one answer. I don't have an answer, but there's a lot of information that we're moving towards that will help us. In structuring what I am speaking to today, of course, I have drawn upon a number of studies, both from Australia and internationally. I'll consider some of the concepts of value, and again, the perspective I draw on value will be different possibly from those that are important to you, and you know, just looking at one very small corner of issues associated with value. The area of this sort of integration of sustainability, commercial property, heritage and value is one which is only now emerging. A lot of other areas are not well resolved either, but this one is quite at the cutting edge. The final point is relating to impacts on value, which, as I may have prefaced, really are very much in the eye of the beholder and are in constant change. Ooh, right. I'm so glad it wasn't something I said. Oh, I'm sorry. These modern buildings, you see, they're all the same. Okay. Now, just turning first of all to consider some of the studies that I've considered. Essentially, the interest, as I think David mentioned, you know, more it changes, more it remains the same. The interest that has been established in studies that are looking at the relationship between heritage and property value have occurred within the last 2 decades. My studies have identified in the order of 25 reports and articles and 150 or so, 160 individual pieces of material. And for those of you who aren't familiar with the acronym TDR, TDR is a transferable development right. So this is the notion of where your heritage building occupies a space which, if it wasn't protected by heritage listing, would be able to be developed to a higher density of development that ascribes value to that notional space which can't be developed. So those potential development rights in many jurisdictions are recognised as being able to be transferred at value, at a value which needs to be identified. This, of course, then ascribes additional value to people who have the benefit from a heritage-protected property and another site when they can enhance that other site, which has, I would suggest, questionable planning implications, but it often can have reasonably strong financial benefits. So that's the attraction and hence the focus of the studies on that financial aspect of transferability of those development rights. Within Australia, there have been a number of studies, and I should note that many came from Victoria, so we have a speaker today, Jim, who will expound in that area. Some of the major studies have come from the United States, and as I mentioned later, a very, very large one from the UK, from the International Property Database, which is over something like 30 years, with all the listed owned properties within institutional ownership in the UK. 10% of their property is heritage listed, so that gives a very substantial resource to look at impact on heritage listing and value of commercial property, which is essentially what they do hold. Although, you know, that is a substantial study, then the other ones generally, there isn't that much available on heritage and value internationally. So, generally speaking, not many studies, a few are Australian, and a number of them are quite old. I think that more recently the increased interest in sustainability is now creating further interest in this field, and I'm very aware that there are a number of certainly higher degree research programs which are looking into these areas in all the university, built environment and architectural fields across Australia. So what we have is an existing situation of diversity of outcomes of these studies. A lot of the impetus of these studies has been on the basis of financial return on income relating and to property value. And the outcome has not... The outcome is unclear. Whether heritage listing does or does not impact on value is very much like any other assessment of property value. It tends to be property-specific, interest-specific, and the purpose for which that valuation is being carried out. So if you're doing a valuation on any property at any point in time, you could have 5 different values, each of which was reliable and well established, but because it's for a different purpose, for a different party, or of a different interest, may bear no relationship to any other valuation which is carried out. So what is value? Okay? That's a huge problem to identify what value is, and it is very much to do with the context. Okay. The last one, I don't know whether I should actually mention that. Really, it doesn't make that much difference. So the significance of listing or otherwise on value is somewhat insignificant. So, you know, that's, but then on certain properties, it does make a